it's just I'm a klutz. Maybe if I stay seated, it will be okay. But I won't. Eh, Kenneth Branagh. Okay, rewind. Does the word name Laurence Olivier mean anything to any of you? Laurence Olivier was considered the finest actor of his day. He was the gold standard of acting in the 40s, 50s. And stage actor and also made many movies. And he made a version of Henry V, which I've never seen. But it is my understanding that it is exceedingly patriotic. Yay, England, we're going to beat the French. It's that sort of tone. Kenneth Branagh made one in the late 80s. And it's amazing, but it is not the same tone. And I've always thought I should see the Olivier one so I can compare. What I would like us to talk about today, and as you finish the play, think about, is whether or not Shakespeare wants us to think that Henry is just completely because there are some odd things in this play. If you want me to think that Henry is totally 100% awesome, there's some troublesome things in this. On the other hand, if you want me to think that Henry is a rotter, there are things in this play I can't think that. I can't think that. So I picked this play for us to read because, first of all, the Kenneth Branagh movie is amazing. Second of all, because it's a really complicated play. It's not a tragedy or a comedy. It's a history play. So in fact, it says the title is The Life of King Henry V. The life. But of course, we're not reading about his do well. Kind of a rotter, little drunkard vandal with their little gang, doing nefarious stuff and embarrassing his father, completely embarrassing his father. And then he became king and he just straightened up and flew right, as they say. And it surprised everybody. Now, the reason I thought that Timothée Chalamet, because he's well known, the Dune movie, the second one just came out. Some of you, he's a young contemporary. Joel Edgerton was the director, who's amazing. And he plays Falstaff. And The King is not the Shakespeare play. It's not the dialogue. It's just a play. It's a movie about Henry V. But it's the Shakespeare. And my son loved this movie, and so he made me watch it. And it's not. I have a pretty low tolerance for violence of any sort in movies, and so my kids screen movies for me, and he's like, you can handle this, Mom. So I don't think there was really anything that I can't recommend this movie to young people. Don't remember there being anything morally objectionable or in your face. So because he is living a life that's not exemplary, when we see him. But if you like Timothée Chalamet as an if you like the Dune movies or something, this might be a good way to ease yourself into the world of Henry V on film. But Kenneth Branagh is super awesome if you can get a hold of that. And Derek Jacobi is the prologue, and we all know he's wonderful. I love that. Oh, I'm picturing Derek Jacobi in the movie striking the match and saying, "Oh, for a muse of fire," and then it hit me. I didn't read that. Part. So I ran back in there and I read it. So hopefully you all figured out that there was a prologue, but I'm going to go back and read some of the prologue here. Wonder if I can, like a hospital. So I want to read, actually, let me ask the first question. We're actually going to look at the questions today. What does the prologue say is the job of the audience? Basically, he gives this whole page. What does he want us to do? Use your imagination. The prologue says, "Oh, for a muse of fire that descends into the brightest heaven of innocence." Yeah, they're the inspiration. They're the goddesses of inspiration for all arts and sciences. I wish I had a muse of fire. What does fire do? It burns, but do you ever have a candle where the flame just goes like this? Does it ever go like that? Where does the flame always go? It always goes up because fire wants to go up. Remember the medieval I go where I want to go, like objects, stones fall because they want to fall. Fire goes up because it wants to go. Kindly inclining, as Chaucer said. I wish my muse was like fire. I wish it could ascend the heaven of invention. I wish I had the highest level of inspiration known to man. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. I get this little stage. I wish I had a whole kingdom. I wish instead of these actors, I had princes. And later he says, oh, piece out our imperfections with your thoughts. Into 1,000 parts divide one man. He says, think when we talk of horses that you see them, printing their proud hoofs in the receiving earth. For 'tis your thoughts that now must deck our kings, carry them here and there, jumping o'er times. So I came to the theater that day, to the Globe Theater, Shakespeare's theater, to see this play. Did I think France was going to be there? Did I think there were going to be horses? Did I think they were going to take me across the English Channel? I don't think I did. Did I think Henry was actually going to be there? Well, I'm a dimwit. We have someone coming out onto the stage and saying, hey, everybody. Yeah. And I have not read every single one of Shakespeare's plays, even all of his histories. But to the best of my knowledge, this is the only time a prologue comes out and says something like, FYI, people, it's play. So you have to imagine a little bit. Yeah, Carson.
You should close his prologue by saying silence your cell phones.
Yes, that would have been funny.
Silence,
I point this out because I'd like you to keep this in mind, that this is, I mean, I find it weird. And I think that the people there might have initially thought it was a little weird for someone to come out on a stage and say, this is a stage, right? We're not actually going to have a war. By the way, we're not going to do what we did with Hamlet. We skipped all over the place. You didn't read the whole play. So we're just kind of methodically move through this week. Canterbury and Ely are having a conversation. I was going to say, what are they talking about? But Rhett, go ahead. If that's not what you were going to say, go ahead.
Do they, nowadays, if there's a play, they'll do showings. I know they probably didn't go on tour with this. They have showings in the theater there. Mm-hmm. How many? How long do they?
It depended on how many people wanted to see it. Okay. And then they would sometimes revive it. The famous story of, there's a story about Richard II. There was a plot against Queen Elizabeth's life, and several people were in on it, and they paid Shakespeare's theater, they paid his acting troupe to put on Shakespeare's troupe. I was like, well, they just did it for money. They didn't know, but it was an example of a revival, a play revival. This was for political reasons, but they would do that too. They did used to take them on tour early on, but then they started, this was by Shakespeare's time, a little bit before they started actually building theaters in London, but you couldn't build them in the city limits because it was kind of a den of iniquity. And so they had to be across the Thames. They had, I'll tell more stories about that later, but that's a good question. Okay, back to my original. Canterbury and Ely, does anybody remember what these two guys are talking about? What do they plan to do?
Then the church would have to pay a lot of money. They won't be receiving a whole lot of pledging. I remember on your video, you described it like sometimes people, if they wanted it in their will, they could pledge their grounds and their house to the church. That would instead go to the king for his use instead of the churches. So basically, if this bill passed, then they would be losing a lot of money. They love money.
They love money.
So instead, one of the guys goes, wait, in times of war, these bills tend to fade because everyone's focused on the war. what if we stirred up King Henry to go to war with France? And so that's what they ended up doing. Then they went on a little bit out, oh, he's such a great king now.
Yeah, he was such a jerk. He used to be such a jerk. They said it in a much nicer way. This is not lofty language that we're using. Yeah, they said, well, his early days didn't promise any merit. But yes, he says, I have, upon our spiritual convocation in regard of cause in hand, things going on. In other words, the French ambassadors are there right at this moment. There's stuff going on with France. As touching France, to give greater sum than ever at one time the clergy yet did to his predecessors part withal. We're offering him a bigger grant from the church than any English king has ever received from the church if he'll just go attack France. But we know they're saying this bill is going to break us. I mean, literally, we'll be broke. The church will not have money. And Ely says, but what prevention? In other words, what are we going to do to stop this? Whip him on to declare war. Right. So maybe at this very beginning, you can see why I asked the question, what does Shakespeare want us to think of all of this? This did not have to be information we were given. Hey, Jesse, guys, we did not get a dose of the quiet talk behind the scenes and the people in the know plotting their little plots to get Henry to do this. It's troublesome.
Corruption of the church and not really benefit.
Yeah. All right. So we move into scene 2 and we finally get to meet Henry. And he's having a meeting. And if you watched, some of you watched the videos. If you didn't, Canterbury, and when Canterbury starts giving his speech, we know exactly what's in Canterbury's mind. We got to get this guy to attack France. We're going to give him money. We got to push this tax bill under the table. And he gives the longest, most convoluted, crazy speech about law, the Salic law, that women can't inherit the throne. You can't inherit through a woman. It has to be through the male line. And he goes on and on about all these people who did inherit through the female line. And besides, the Salic law doesn't even, have to do with what is today France, blah, 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 blah. And then he says the hilarious, and so 'tis clear as the summer sun. No, Canterbury, it's not. What a hilarious thing to say. And Henry apparently thinks so too, because we read this exceedingly long speech. Henry says one line, may I with right and conscience make this claim? Cut through the malarkey, Canterbury. Get to the point. Can I claim the French throne or not? The sin upon my head, dread sovereign. That's what Canterbury says. Does that remind you of any? Where have we heard that line in history? Let the sin be on us and on our children. Oh, the sin be on my head, says Canterbury. And you know what? Henry doesn't know, but we know there's something nefarious going on behind the scenes. There is a sin here, right? He's whipping somebody up to war for mercenary purposes. See, it's already dark. It's already dark and troubling. Ely and Exeter and Westmoreland. Ely is the bishop at all these guys, Exeter, Westmoreland, they're all the nobility, and many of them are relatives of Henry, like uncles and things like that. They're in the same family. They're all stirring him on. Go on, do it, do it, do it. Everybody expects you to do it. Never king of England had nobles richer and more loyal subjects. What if Scotland attacks us from behind while we're gone, which they always do? Scotland is always in cahoots with France. And so if you attack, that's the way it works. We attack France, France sends messengers, Scotland attacks England. go home. This is the deal. And they said, oh, no, it's fine. We got it. There'll be enough people left behind in England. We got the Scotland border covered. Just go do it. So at this point, we don't know. How does Henry feel about it? But he says, okay, I heard there's an ambassador from France here. Let's call him in and see what he has to say. Let's hear both sides. The ambassador comes in, great predecessor, King Edward III. You sent a message to the King of France saying, this land, this dukedom, is mine because it belonged to my great-grandpa. It belonged to my relatives. It's mine. In answer of which claim, the prince, our master, the prince, not the king of France, the prince. This is the guy they call the Dauphin. It just means Prince of France. It's not his name. It's just his title. Yes. The prince, our master, says that you savor too much of youth and bids you be advised. There's not in France that can be with a nimble galliard one. You cannot revel into dukedoms there. You can't party your way into a dukedom of France because we know all you do. You party. Therefore sends you meter for your spirit, more ton of treasure. And in lieu of this, desires you to let the dukedoms that you claim hear no more of you. Thus the Dauphin speaks. What is the treasure? Tennis balls. Here, little boy, some tennis balls. Go play a game. Because that's all you know how to do. Right, this is very insulting. This is really, really insulting. And we know something already about the Dauphin. We hear more about him when we meet him in person here. He's a smart aleck. Guy's a smart aleck. So, but picture this. Henry is sitting here and a stupid, rash Prince of France has sent him as a joke a box of tennis balls and said, here, go play a little game. Henry's got options. My hand, how do I respond? Oh, here's how he responds. I'm not reading the whole thing, but we are glad the Dauphin is so pleasant with us. His present and your pains we thank you for. When we have matched our rackets to these balls, we will in France, by God's grace, play a set, shall strike his father's crown into the hazard. Oh, we're going to play a game with these balls? In France, we're going to rackets out. You know what? We're knocking your father's crown off and knocking it into the out of bounds. That's what we're going to do. Later down, he says, tell the pleasant prince, this mock of his has turned his balls to gunstones. His tennis balls are now cannonballs. And his soul shall stand sore charged for the wasteful vengeance that mock out of their dear husbands, mock mothers from their sons, mock castles down. And some are yet ungotten and unborn that shall have cause to curse the Dauphin's scorn. Yeah, your little funny joke. I'm going to come whip up on you, and a lot of people are going to die. A lot of people are going to die. Laugh at that. He wraps it up. Yes, he says, his jest will savor but of shallow wit when thousands more weep more than did laugh at it. Convey them with safe conduct. He tells them, okay, send him out. All right. Exeter says this was a merry message after he leaves. And the king says, we hope to make the sender blush at it. Oh, he's going to be sorry. Now, two young guys, right? A little hot-headed maybe. Henry with a history of not making the wisest decisions in life. That's a big reaction. You played a little joke on me, so I'm going to threaten to kill your family. It's basically what just happened. I'm going to come wipe out large groups of people in your country. And so his mind's made up. Boom, we're going to France. If I was on the fence before, this did it. I mean, the Dauphin couldn't have done better if he had been working with Canterbury directly to get him to go to France. Perfect storm, right? We're headed off. And that's the end of Act 1. And Act 2, and by the way, I made a typo. Like the question says, how is the end of Act 2 similar to the beginning of Act 3? I think I meant, how is the end of a year ago? And it doesn't remember why. Okay, beginning of Act 2. Here comes the prologue again. And he says, now all the youth of England are on fire, and silken dalliance in the wardrobe lies. You know, like a silken robe that you'd wear when you're just lounging around, you know, being a couch potato and watching Netflix. We put those away. What are we getting out? Our armor and our weapons. Silken dalliance is put away in the wardrobe. And he says, everybody's banding together, following the mirror of all Christian kings. Please remember that. Following the mirror of all Christian kings with winged heels. And the prologue says, it would be wonderful if everybody, that is really exciting, and it's almost like we just got transported to another, like, future dimension. Like I want that now. He says, this would be amazing if everybody were equally devoted. It's okay. Come back to me, guys. I know, it was funny. I made a joke too. But see, thy fault, France hath in thee found out. Nest of hollow bosoms, which he fills with treacherous crowns. Crowns are money. And 3 corrupted men. 1, Richard Earl of Cambridge. The 2nd, Henry Lord Scrope of Masham. And the 3rd, Knight of Northumberland, have for the guilt of France. Oh, just take your. There is the playhouse, there you must sit, and thence to France shall we convey you safe and bring you back. For if we may, we'll not have one. It's going to get seasick. Not really going. FYI, you're just going to stay here. I think I'm making my point very well. The prologue, though, is making the point. Really? Did you have to tell us that? Yes, he did, apparently. All right. And that we're all in the same boat, metaphorically, and not literally. He told us, and now the scene shifts to Southampton. Scene 1, London, a street. You lied to me, prologue. We're not going to Southampton. We're meeting Bardolph, Nym, and Pistol. And I told you this in my intro last week, that this was important to know this in this play. In Act 2, the prologue, and Scene 1. We just found out that there are traitors in the midst of Henry's army. Now let's meet Bardolph, Pistol, and Nym. First of all, Nym and Pistol seem to be fighting about something. Did anyone catch what is their disagreement? Why do they hate each other so much? They used to be best buds. Why is it, Lauren? One of them stole the other's girlfriend. The hostess. No, quickly. Nym, Bardolph. I want to see Pistol. I don't want to talk to Pistol. Bardolph, like, she was engaged to you. Sure, she was engaged to you. She's married Pistol. She's just they have to live with it. What did this woman do to Nym? What is she like? Okay, keeping in mind what the prologue just said, there's a nest of traitors in the midst of England. What did she do? What did she do to Nym? She betrayed him. She turned on him. And why is Falstaff dying, by the way?
Because King Henry betrayed him. We're following the line of betrayal. Yeah.
The boy comes in. By the way, I keep trying to sell the Kenneth Branagh movie. Christian Bale is the boy. He's like 12 years old. Awesome. Looks just like Christian Bale. You got to come quick to Falstaff. He's very sick and went to bed. And the hostess Nell says, the king hath killed his heart. She said it flat out. The king hath killed his heart. Because remember, in the previous play, Henry said, yeah, we're not friends anymore. Don't write to me. Don't come calling. I don't want to see you. I'm done. We're done. I'm the king. You're a lowlife. It's not happening. And Falstaff, in the previous play, he has this line, and for whatever reason, sometimes they're just, surely this happens to you. You read something and it just sparks something in you. It makes you feel deeply, but maybe someone else in your family reads the same line and like, what you see in that. But this one, best friends. And Falstaff says, but master, we have heard the chimes at midnight. And what he means is, but all those nights of carousing and fun and unburdening our hearts to each other and, I don't know, petty theft, probably, does that not mean anything to you? But master, we have heard the chimes at midnight. Tough. This is Henry's answer. So the next time we encounter, in this series of plays, the next time we encounter Falstaff, well, we don't encounter him, do we? We just hear that he's ill. And then we hear him talked about after he has died. The king has killed his heart. Now, we go straight from there to scene 2. Now we go to Southampton. And he says, okay, two of you, I don't really understand why you would do this. I've given you every promotion and opportunity. You don't lack for anything. Why would you do this? But what shall I say to thee, Lord Scroop, thou cruel, hateful, savage, and inhuman creature? Thou that didst bear the key of all my counsels, that knewest the very bottom of my soul, that almost mightst have coined me into gold, wouldst thou have practiced on me for thy use? May it be possible that foreign hire could out of thee extract one? You were my friend. How could you do this to me? And now, if I read the same words and you picture Falstaff to Henry, ungrateful, savage, and inhuman creature, you did bear the key of all my counsels. You knew the very bottom of my soul. Is it possible that for foreign hire, what sort of foreign hire, it's not foreign, what sort of hire drew Henry away from Falstaff? The kingship. Is it possible that the kingship could buy you away from me? See, guys, and here's the plot, because I think he wants us to notice this. I don't think I'm making something up here. It's weird to say, prologue comes out, yay, let's go attack France. Let's go to Southampton. Oh, first, pit stop to London Street, where the guy that Henry dissed and threw away like garbage is now dying from a broken heart. Okay, that's done. Now let's go to Southampton. I don't think it's an accident. Are you starting to see why I ask you, what does Shakespeare want us to think of this guy? And I'm going to warn you, in the second half, there's some parts that get even worse. It's troublesome. Okay, but hooray, we've uncovered the treachery. Thank God, says Henry. His mercy give you patience to endure, and true repentance of all dear offenses. Treason like that is worthy of death, and I hope God forgives you. I hope you really are repentant. Henry, are you repentant at all? Do you even know what's going on with Falstaff? Hold on to that, because we're going to find out a little answer to that. Then Shakespeare whips us right back to Pistol and Nym, right after this scene. And Falstaff is dead. Boy, bristle thy courage up, for Falstaff, he is dead. And they describe in very tender terms his death. How he was kind of delirious with a fever and imagining things. And then Nell says this, no, we're about God. So he bade me lay more clothes on his feet. I put my hand into the bed and they were as cold as any stone. And then I felt to his knees, and so upward, and all was as cold as any stone. It's very moving, typical, like deathbed. He's dying. His body's going cold. Well, Falstaff is dead, and what are Pistol, Nym, and Bardolph going to do now? Where are they headed? France. We joined the army. We've joined Henry's army. Okay. Now Shakespeare takes us finally, on that sea travel with no sea. Jump across to France. And we meet the Dauphin. And we meet the French king. And the French king says, "Thus comes the English with full power upon us. And more than carefully it us concerns to answer royally in our defenses. The English are coming. We better send people out and make sure all our cities are well defended. We've got, garrisons." The Dauphins. Therefore, I say 'tis forth to view the sick and feeble parts of France, but let us do it with no more show of fear. No, with no more than if we heard that England were busied with a Whitsun Morris dance. Let's not go out and check out our defenses like we're afraid. Because we so shouldn't be afraid. It's England, for crying out loud. The jerk king from England. From a good liege, fantastically born by a youth that fear attends her not, which means we shouldn't be afraid of her, England. The constable, "Oh, peace, Prince Dauphin. You are too much mistaken in this king. Question your grace the late ambassadors, with what great state he heard their embassy, how well supplied with noble counselors, how modest in exception, and withal how terrible in constant resolution." Oh, you think he's a nobody? Oh, yeah, go ask the ambassador. The guy that he said, we're going to nick his father's crown into the out of bounds, and we're going to mock mothers out of their sons and mock women from their husbands. Go ask him if he seemed idle, shallow, humorous. Dauphin, "Well, 'tis not so, my lord high constable. But though we think it so, 'tis no in fortifying France, but you're just wrong." The French king, fortunately, is a little smarter than the Dauphin. "Think we King Harry strong, and princes, look you strongly armed to meet him. The kindred of him hath been fleshed upon us, and he is bred out of that bloody strain that haunted us in our familiar paths. Witness our too much memorable shame when Crecy battle fatally was struck, and all our princes captive by the hand of that black name, Edward the Black Prince of Wales." Oh, no. Remember his ancestors? Hey, Dauphin, remember that time when the King of France was captured by the King of England and taken to England and held for ransom? Remember that? Maybe we should consider across the channel. Henry and his army are on French soil currently, but they're going to give him one last chance. Our brother of England, what does the King of England have to say to us? From him, "Thus he greets your majesty. He wills you in the name of God Almighty that you divest yourself and lay apart the borrowed glories that by gift of heaven, by law of nature and of nations, longs to him and to his heirs, namely the crown, and all wide-stretched honors that pertain by custom and the ordinance of times unto the crown of France." What did he just ask for? You just give me the crown now. Just fork it over. If the French king takes him up on it, they've saved a lot of trouble and bloodshed. Does he think the French king is just going to? Probably not. But the French king knows this is the negotiating, and he says, "Or else what follows? What if I don't?" Exeter says, "Bloody constraint. For if you hide the crown even in your hearts, there he will rake for it." Don't you even hide it in your heart, because he'll dig it out. "Therefore, in fierce tempest is he coming, in thunder and in earthquake, like a Jove, that if requiring fail, he will compel." That's my message. He says, that's my message, unless the Dauphin is here. Because I have a personal message just for him. I know, and this is the proper reaction. Dauphin, I stand here for him. What to him? From England. What does he have to say to me? What to him? Scorn and defiance, slight regard, contempt, and anything that might not misbecome the mighty cinder doth he prize you at. Thus says my king. You're a smart aleck. This would be the Shakespearean interpretation.
Why are you looking at me?
I know. I'm looking around. I was not intended. You're not a smart aleck. Well, not currently, right, Matthias? The Dauphin says, say, if my father render fair return, if my father agrees to any of his demands, it is against my will, for I desire nothing but odds with England. Bring it on. So says, really not very good. I will let you know in the morning what I think. Because we already know from this scene, the French king is taking this threat seriously. This guy's got warrior blood in him, even if he has seemed to be a little bit of a, well, in his youth. I think it's already passed. Let me just look back at that. Oh yeah, this is when he gets mad and he says, I'm going to turn his tennis balls into cannonballs. Okay, this is that same speech. He says, and we understand him well, how he comes o'er us with our wilder days, not measured